You're now watching Boomsies on the Bet Rivers Network.
Sometimes it's tough being a sports fan. Yeah, that's one of those moments right now. Boomsies.
Boomsies, 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 boomsies. Well, welcome to the show. Come on, it's time, let's go. So glad that you're here. Woo. We're gonna talk some sports and talk some more. Here comes the king of cool. Woo. Oh, please welcome my host, Dan O'Toole. Dan O'Toole.
Edmonton Oilers fans. I get it. You just had the ride of a lifetime on a roller coaster in which the ending of that roller coaster was not what you expected. It's one of these times where you kind of wish it was a sweep. It wouldn't be as painful. Had the Panthers just won 4 straight, we wouldn't be in these emotions right now. That blowout game in Game 4, that's when the tide turned. You're like, this might happen. They force a Game 7. You had the momentum, every ounce of momentum. And then a Florida Panthers team in which we hadn't seen since Game 3 shows up in Game 7. The first 15 minutes of Game 7 was frantic. I was exhausted, and I was sitting on a couch. I just can't imagine the emotions you're going through if you're a die-hard Oilers fan. The pain you're feeling upon losing that Game 7. You thought it was in the bag. I know it's a Game 7, but come on, let's be honest. We thought, okay, the Oilers have this now. They're going to win this. Look at the last 3 games. But at least we had the ride. I keep telling myself that. Because that's what Jays fans tell themselves. When Jose Bautista hit that home run, we were like, okay, we didn't make it to the World Series, but we had that moment together. We'll always have that moment. But I think it's more difficult in hockey to grasp onto that one moment. What moment do you hold on to? Because you'll keep going back to Game 7 and saying, well, why couldn't we get anything going? Why so many passes? I was one of those people yelling, shoot. Just fire at the net. I watched it. My good friend Brian Bickles, who was on last week, had us over for burgers and had a whole spread on. It was great. And he's like, just shoot the puck. It might bounce off something. Just shoot it. But I get it. The Edmonton Oilers try to find the perfect lane, and credit to the Panthers. They closed all those lanes. So we had that run as a nation, and I know not everyone was cheering for the Oilers, but hey, that's your own battle you're fighting. If you're a Flames fan, I get it. You despise the Oilers. But everyone else, I guess Canucks fans probably weren't cheering. But everyone I know was transfixed by the Oilers' run here in Ontario. And these are hardcore Leafs fans. We thought the Cup was coming back to Canada for the first time since 1993. And then Chris Cuthbert throws out a stat last night or Monday night. Sunday night. When the hell was the game? Monday night. How no team had come back from a deficit in the third period except the 1942 Leafs, who had also come back from a 3-0 deficit to win the Stanley Cup. So we're like, oh, I never believe anything in those stats because previous stats have no bearing on the current game that you're watching. But that one I was hanging on to. I'm like, oh boy, there's a chance. There's a chance. So dealing with the sadness, the deflation, and then Paul Maurice popped up on my social media feed. A coach I've always respected. Jay and I always used a soundbite of Paul Maurice on our previous podcast. The very inventive named Jay and Dan podcast. Where it was Paul Maurice going, oh. He's a great soundbite. He had some great interviews on the ice. Looked into the camera, thanked his friends, his family, his parents. But I think his best interview was post-game, off the ice, sitting down, doing an interview with ESPN's Scott Van Pelt. And I want to play 2 question and answers that Paul Maurice gave that gave me newfound... Not that I needed to find more respect for Paul Maurice, but it gave you a glimpse of the man that he is and why he's so well respected in the game. Let's hear one of those right now.
Look, they got 97, they got 28, they got Hyman, they got a boatload of guys that can put the puck in the net. As best you can, I can't imagine how long it takes for those 20 minutes to exhaust themselves. How are you processing those moments?
We talk about this. We talk about this from training camp on, when there's 8 minutes left to go in the third period in the deciding game. If we've got this right, we're saying, I hope the clock slows down, not speeds up.
What do you mean by that?
To be present, to be in the moment. I don't want that thing to go. I don't want the game to end like that. I'm not wishing for this thing to be over so we can call ourselves Stanley Cup champions. I want to live the moment that we're in. I'm never, very probably ever getting a Game 7 Stanley Cup final ever in my life again. I don't want it to speed up. I want it to slow down.
That's amazing. I've never seen or heard a coach describe the final moments of a game like that. To me, that was a mind-melting answer. Because I'm like, holy shit. Now I see it. Take everything in. The sights, the sounds, the smells even. And that's what he was doing. That's why I try to say on this podcast, be present. There was a time in my life where taking the kids to the park, I'm like, oh man, how long is this going to be? I don't want to sit in this park. Now I enjoy every moment of that. Cherish it. Be present. There's memories being made and you don't even know it. So Paul Maurice, A+ answer. And his next answer, even more amazing.
Now what? Now you're a Stanley Cup champion. Your name's on that thing forever and ever. No matter what happens from right now until the end of time, you're on the cup. How's that change your life?
I hope it doesn't. I hope I'm learning to live my life well enough that the trophy doesn't define how I treat the people around me. But I'm also going to skate the hell out of these guys in training camp because I got carte blanche now. I can do whatever the hell I want.
How great is that? Don't let your job define you. Don't let your status define you. Treat the person cleaning the office the same as the person that runs the office that owns the company. That made me feel a little bit better about the Florida Panthers winning the Stanley Cup. That Paul Maurice finally gets his cup. How many games did he have coached? Had he coached in the NHL? 1,848 without a win, without a cup. The most regular season games coached without a championship. While he improves to 5-0 in Game 7s. From Sault Ste. Marie. The Sioux. So yeah, a very different answer than I once got from Craig Ludwick. Me and a buddy were sitting there. I don't even know how we ran into him, but we were in Montreal. And we were at the same restaurant, and we were all having drinks, and our group kind of knew someone in Craig Ludwig's group, so we went over and we're sitting with them, and so my buddy asked him, so when you first lifted the Stanley Cup, what were you thinking about? Were you thinking about all your coaches, your parents, your teammates? What were you thinking? Craig Ludwig looked at him and said, I was thinking about the party we're about to have. I wasn't thinking about any of that. I was thinking, holy crap, this is going to be a good party. So I'm like, very different answer than what Paul Maurice gave. While the Edmonton Oilers, whenever this happens, my first thought is, those guys have to get in that room and say, oh man, we got to try to do this all over again. We got to the top of the mountain and we couldn't take the last step. Now we got to go back to the bottom of the mountain and start again. That's got to be deflating. That's where a sports psychologist has to step in and say, hey, Panthers, they were here last year. They didn't win. Look what happened this year. And the old adage in hockey is always, you got to lose before you win. So you can take those two tidbits into next year. And to start the next season, what were our updated odds, Z-Money? The Oilers are going in as... No, the Panthers and Stars are going in as the favorites to win the Cup next year, followed by the Oilers. Is that correct?
Yeah, as of right now on Bet Rivers, the best odds for next year are Panthers, Avalanche, and Stars at plus 900, followed by the Oilers at plus 1,000.
Okay. I also golf with a buddy that had Knobloch as a coach in Sarnia. And he said he was the best coach he ever had. He said he was the team chaplain. He was the team therapist. He was the team coach. He was the team everything. So he was not surprised at what he did with the Edmonton Oilers. So they're in good hands. The Oilers are in good hands. One win short. A lot of people questioning. We were during the game. McDavid couldn't get anything going. He fell more than I had ever seen him fall, but I think they were just gassed. And they gave him no room to move. They just had nothing left in the tank. That's why the Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy to win. And also the hardest thing to do in hockey is find a Florida Panthers fan. but I know one. The strange thing is, I didn't have to search far and wide to find the only Panthers fan I know because I golf with him frequently. Georgie Boy joins us. You just on cloud 9, buddy?
Oh, man, I can't tell you how excited I am right now. It's been a whirlwind. Been a long time coming. 30 years, man. 30 years.
How does a kid from Peterborough become a Panthers fan?
Well, funny story. My dad actually moved to Fort Lauderdale when I was in 2006. So he had some season tickets. We went to a lot of games together, and it's just I fell in love with the city and the team, the atmosphere there. It's as growing up, I only went to Leaf games and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to trip the Leafs here because I know that's probably a big part of the viewer base, but when you go to a game, there's tailgating outside, there's concerts live concerts after the game. It was just the whole experience was just it blew my mind, and that the fact that you can walk into the arena with shorts and a t-shirt just made the experience that much better. So yeah, that's the moral of the story.
Here's how committed George is to the Florida Panthers. He cheers for them and then cheers for them in the Cup final, despite the fact you had a friend playing on the Oilers.
Yeah. I know Cease. He had some ups and downs. I guess, I know him through friends, but yeah, he, you know what, good for him. Good for him for bouncing back like he did. And good for the Oilers. Like, holy cow. Talk about getting your money's worth from that series. They put everything they had into it, and it came right down to you couldn't ask for a better final, in my opinion. 2-1. I thought it was going overtime, but unbelievable.
I saw we actually played a clip from Paul Maurice earlier in the podcast in which I'd never seen someone describe the last 8 minutes of a game, where he was asked, okay, that must have felt like forever. He said, I actually wanted it to slow down because I wanted to enjoy every second. As a fan of the team, did you experience those last 8 minutes the same as Paul Maurice wanted to?
Oh, heck no. When they kept icing the puck, I'm like, oh my gosh, boys, come on. Like, let's get this over with, kill some time. But no, that had to have been, I was watching, it was actually funny. I was watching at my neighbor's on his back deck. He has a nice setup. And we were all discussing over a couple of beverages how long that period was. It felt like it was an eternity, but it worked out in the end, man.
Georgie Boy, great community supporter in Peterborough, a supporter of the Peterborough Petes, and Sea Flight champion at the Peterborough Golf and Country Club. That's
right. And hey, shout out to some of the alumni from that were at the Petes on the Petes with Florida, right? You got, was it Sean Thornton, Stephen Lawrence, I guess would be the most recent one. Jeff Toohey was a longtime GM with the Petes. So a lot of Peterborough connections on that Florida team.
Jeff Toohey's with the Florida Panthers?
Yeah. I found that out for the first time last night. The Petes tweeted it out.
Look at that. Now I feel good after hearing Paul Maurice's comments. I feel good about the Peterborough connection, and I feel good for you that you can celebrate and you being the only Florida Panthers fan I know, George.
It's lonely. It's lonely at the top. What can I say?
Thanks, buddy.
Okay, thank you. See you, Daniel.
Georgie Boy, great guy. Here's how I first met George, and tells you what kind of guy he is. So I become a member at my course. One of my first days there, George comes right up. He says, Dan, I'm George. And we know a person. We have the same acquaintance. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Well, how's that? He's like, when I went to elementary school, your mom was the receptionist at my school. And I said, boom, let's golf. And we've golfed together ever since. We've become good buddies. And my mom remembered him. He goes, oh, I remember Georgie Boy. That little shithead. No, she didn't say that. So there is a Panthers fan that is happy that doesn't live in the Florida region. I've also heard it from at least a half dozen people that have been to Panthers games. That is a low-key, awesome arena. Like, they love it. You obviously can't see arenas on the broadcast. They don't show the concourses and stuff, but they say it's a very nice arena. So, Panthers Parade is going on in Fort Lauderdale this weekend. Glad they aren't having it in a parking lot like the Carolina Hurricanes did that one year. Whenever a team like the Panthers wins, you always dread, oh man, is this a parking lot parade? Oh, what it would have been like in Edmonton for that parade. Oh! It would have rivaled the Raptors parade. Remember that debacle? Oh, man. Worst planned parade on earth. Took them an hour to start it. That was textbook how not to do a parade when the Raptors won the championship. So if the Leafs ever... who am I kidding? What are the Leafs odds next year? Z? They're on the list.
They're on the list. They have the 6th best odds at plus 1,600.
Plus 1,600. Okay. I saw news last night. It was not reported by anyone, but this person had a verified account. We're getting ready for the game. I'm sitting out by Bixie's pool, and I'm scrolling through Twitter to see if there's any info before the game we need to know. Anyone hurt? Yada, yada. Yada, yada. This one pops up. Mitch Marner going to the Utah hockey team. Confirmed by sources. I'm like, okay, I've never seen this person before. Don't know if this is credible. And then we get to Hockey Night in Canada, and Elliot Friedman, who I consider a good source, he does not mention Mitch Marner being traded to Utah. Mentions Omar going to the Ottawa Senators, but no Marner. So if Friedman did mention it, I think that report was bogus. Did you see that anywhere else, Z, in your travels across the internet getting ready for Boomsies? Or am I the only one who saw Marner to Utah?
No, I definitely saw that post last night, or that tweet last night, and clicked on it and had the exact same thought you did. Who is this guy? And then somebody basically said the exact same thing in the comments, and he's like, I get paid to report on the news that I hear. Well, dude, you're hearing wrong news. That didn't happen.
Sorry for the cough there, but I've had a cough now for a month, and it's gotten to the point where I think I might die. Because when I cough now, my airways are constricted and it feels like I'm suffocating. So I wake up at night, I'm like, I can't breathe. Okay, it's lights out, Denny boy. But then it passes. I'm sure it's fine. I did the wrong thing and told my mom that I have this cough. So every day she's like, what did the doctor say? I'm like, he's on vacation. I'll get another one today. Is the doctor back from vacation? No, he retired. Speaking of my mom, went to a family reunion this past weekend. My mom's side of the family. And you're thinking, okay, what are you, 10 people there? No, there's 200. It's a big freaking family. And I was reminded how great these events are, because there's just bonkers events like 3-legged races, a plank race where 3 people, you have a foot on a plank on each side. You have to walk to the end of the route, whoever gets there fastest. It's a lot of fun. But the biggest event is the shoe kick. I've said this to 10 people now, and they're like, oh, wow, what's the shoe kick now? So it's an event in which the person who kicks their shoe the furthest wins. And if you win that, you win a work boot that is painted gold and is on the base of a statue. You get the boot statue. There's the Stanley Cup, and then there's the boot statue. As a kid, you're like, oh my, that'd be glorious. One day I'll hold that. We had it in an arena. We had to move the events inside. So we were confined by a hockey rink. But the winning boot put her 3 rows deep into the stands at the Norwood Arena. 3 rows deep for the win. Over the glass, into the seats, give them the trophy. And it's also the first time I've ever went to the family reunion and felt like a Greek god. The first time I've ever gone with my new flowing locks. And I'm not talking out of school when I say this, but this side of the family is follically challenged. They admit it. They own it. So when I walked in with my current hair, I now know what George Clooney feels like. And then just before I left, an old fifth cousin comes up, and I thought, he's approaching me. I'm like, this guy, he looks upset. He's like, hey, let me tell you something. I'm like, oh, what's going on here? If you show up here next year, cut your damn hair. I'm like, whoa. I don't know if he was serious or not, but I left. Bye-bye. See you next year. I'll have hair down to my ass. So I didn't win the golden boot, but I left walking on a cloud. It's a great feeling. Z, we haven't talked to you in a while. We've had guests the past 2 weeks. It's, you know what? I got a homesick for you, buddy. You were here, literally, not in spirit, but in person. But you had no microphone. We couldn't talk to you. So you're back. Anything I missed on my rundown? Any stats I missed for the Cup? I know Connor McDavid won the Conn Smythe. People are upset that he didn't come out and accept it. I'm like, why? Why does he want that picture? He doesn't want the picture with that. Give the guy a break. He doesn't want to. He knows everyone's there to see the Cup. They're there to see the Conn Smythe winner. Anything I missed?
I mean, there's a couple small notes of stuff that stuck out to me. So one would be, somebody you know from your hometown, Corey Perry becomes the first player in NHL history to lose the Stanley Cup final 4 times in 5 years with 4 different teams. Okay, that's not great, but hey, you can also say, how many Cup finals were you in if someone brings that stat up? For sure. The other one is Evan Rodriguez becomes the first person named Evan to win the Cup or have his name engraved on the Cup, which is a odd stat.
I like that. I like that tidbit. Wait until coming years when we get all the weird names that young boys have now.
Jaeger.
So, yeah, there's going to be this is going to be a new trend of names. Evan isn't even that strange of a name. Evan's a pretty standard name, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. And I mean, it was bound to happen this year because Evan Rodriguez plays for the Panthers. Evan Bouchard plays for the Oilers. So it was bound to happen either way. It's just, yeah, you're right. It's a common name, which is why it was a surprising stat.
Okay, I like that one. What else you got?
The last one, which I know we like to go over, money.
Yep.
Kyle Okposo wins the Cup. Great. You would assume end to his career. He's been a long-time NHLer. and he had a nice little a nice little performance bonus clause in his contract that he signed with the Sabres before getting traded to Florida. If he wins the Cup, he gets a nice, cool $500,000. So a nice payday after celebrating with his teammates.
And they also get their bonuses. Stanley Cup winners payout. Let's see what that is. How much do players get? The championship get a slightly more lucrative prize. They get $3.75 million for the team. So they get to split that. The team that loses, the Oilers got $2.25 million. So there you go. I don't know if the Black Aces, they get paid the same bonus. This is something I could ask Bickle. But so you get a playoff bonus as well. So Kyle Opozo, going to have a good summer. Also, I saw Z-Money that it was the most wagered on hockey game in the history of the BetRivers app. Is that correct?
Sir. Game 7 was the most, like you said, most wagered on and most popular NHL game in the history of BetRivers Online Sportsbook. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. Lots of people watching, at least a lot of people putting money down on the game.
So I was listening on my way to Z Money's. We have a live stream every Monday at 1 where we play the latest games. And I always listen to Jim Rome on satellite radio on the way there. For the first 30 minutes of Jim Rome's show on Monday, talked about Game 7. So I'm like, wow, this is going to... I actually called in. I was talking to one of the producers of the show. I'm like, are Americans going to watch? He's like, we're all going to watch, and we're going to talk about this the first thing on Tuesday's show as well. So I'm like, okay. We as Canadians, we want our sport to be liked. We just want to be liked. We want people to watch our sport. We crave acceptance by Americans. So I text a former producer of ours at Fox in LA. So I said, hey, told him about Rome, talking about the Game 7 for 30 minutes. I said, so does this mean Americans are going to watch? His response, nope. So there you go. Build us up just to bring us back down. Have we seen any ratings from either side of the border for that Game 7? Have those popped up anywhere? In my travels on Twitter, now known as X, I have not seen any numbers. Z?
I am looking. I haven't seen anything yet either, though.
Okay. It will be the most watched Cup game for the last 20 years in Canada. I know that. There was a Canadian team playing. So all eyes were on that on this side of the border. Very interested to see the numbers for the United States. Anything else do we have time for?
Sorry, I got a bunch of tabs open. I'm going to bounce it back and forth. Do you want to touch on the big move your Ottawa Senators made yesterday?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, Senators, right before Game 7, got themselves a goalie in Linus Ullmark, the former Vezina Trophy winner. Going back to Boston is a first-round pick. They're getting the corporal, Jonas Korpisalo, and forward Mark Kastelik. The Sens are also retaining 25% of Korpisalo's contract. Now, the first-round pick that Boston gets is actually their own first-round pick that they'd already dealt away. So, I mean, it's a great deal for Ottawa.
Yeah, and it clears up any confusion in the net in Boston because Swayman and Ullmark, they split most of the time during the regular season, and then it was Swayman's net for the postseason. So Jim Montgomery, friend of Boomsies, and management probably said, well, Swayman's our guy. He's proven it. Let's get a return for a hell of a guy who could be a number one anywhere because we need a a guy who's going to fill a backup role. So, yeah, the Ottawa Senators get their goalie, their best since Peter Sidorkowicz.
Just to chime in here, I found TV stats for Game 6. And Game 6 broke North American records, so I would assume that Game 7 would do better. But so the NHL Media Guide put out Game 6 of the Cup Final delivered an average audience of 9.7 million viewers across North America, making it the most watched Stanley Cup Final playoff game across North America. Oh, since 2019. I apologize. I was wrong.
Since 2019. So if they had 9 million for Game 6, conservative estimate, they had 12 to 13 million for Game 7.
Yeah,
if
that
not,
would make sense.
Yeah, I don't think they double it to 18, but it was the perfect scenario for Gary Bettman because he loves his he loves his American franchises. He didn't want a sweep. No one's watching a sweep. So he got the best of both worlds, a Game 7 in which a small market team wins the cup. That's his dream come true. His ultimate dream. I know everyone says there's always dirty pool going on. But if Gary Bettman had his wish, he would have the Toronto Maple Leafs win a Stanley Cup. So if you're a Leafs fan, don't ever think calls are going against you because the league doesn't want you to win. They desperately want you to win. The NHL desperately wants the Leafs to hoist the Stanley Cup. It's the greatest sports story in North America. People will be transfixed by the Leafs potentially ending the curse. They want that to happen. Get that through your head. The Toronto Maple Leafs being successful is good business for the NHL. The Edmonton Oilers were good business for the NHL because they had Connor McDavid. No Connor on the Oilers. I don't think you're getting nearly as many eyeballs. Because if you told someone in 1975 that there was going to be an Edmonton, Florida Stanley Cup Final, first off, they'd say, yeah, Florida has a team? That is not a juggernaut matchup on paper. Add in star power, add in every single storyline that we had going into Game 7, you have eyeballs. You don't need any storylines for the Toronto Maple Leafs. People know the story. They haven't won since there was stagecoaches. That's all you need to know. So for the Oilers, there's always next year. For every team that didn't make it to Game 7 of the Cup Final, look at all the rest you've got. Look how your body's going to rejuvenate. As Bixie said last week, Joe Quenville always said, rest is a weapon. Think of all that rest. A lot of teams got a lot more rest than others. Hey, playing me out. It's like the Grammys. Make sure you hug someone. You don't know who needs it. And be nice. Doesn't cost you anything.
Welcome to Boomsies with Dan O'Toozy. Live from Orono in the heart of Ontario. Oh, baby, Boomsies.